Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a super interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the ADV Tactical Pitboss 1. You see that? I shook the whole cameras because my forearm is on the table and the camera mounts connected to the table. This is a, believe it or not, a button lock. Oh my gosh. Seriously, this is the biggest button lock that I've ever handled. Now, let me tell you guys something. First off, this was sent to me directly by Mr. Andre de Villiers himself. That's what ADV stands for. So thank you very much, Andre, for sending this in. I really appreciate that. Thanks so much to my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. There's a link for Patreon right down below. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let me give you guys some information first off. All right, people are always want to know right off the bat, where can I get it? There are various retailers that sell ADV knives. I found a somewhat healthy listing supply on Revolver Tactical, which I think is a retailer you guys are probably familiar with. There is a version 1 and version 2. From what I can tell, the Pitboss 2, as far as the hardware and basically construction of the handle goes, is very, very similar, if not identical. And then your blade, there's a lot of differences in the Pitboss 2 blade. We have like a fuller and a compound grind, maybe a little bit of difference in the edge and the curvature of the edge, right? There is also, if you're looking at this going, holy moly, that's really cool that it's huge, I would like a smaller version. There is a mini Pitboss that comes in, and believe me, we're going to measure this. The mini Pitboss still is a full-size knife coming in at somewhere around 8 inches. But I just wanted to be clear that a lot of these knives are sold out or listed as discontinued, right? I would imagine that Mr. Andre de Villiers is interested in perhaps maybe evolving this a bit, bringing it back in a different form. I'm not really sure. He asked me to review it, and I'm going to review it, and I'm going to give my thoughts, what I think. So don't be frustrated with me if you can't find these, but there are listings for the mini, the large, the 1 and the 2, and there is a Pitboss 1 and 2 for the mini as well. So just to kind of get you guys up to speed with the information that I have, this is the information that I have. So let's go ahead and measure this giant monster here. God, this thing is huge. Overall length, 9.75 inches overall with a 4.5 inch blade. And the cutting edge is 4 it's 4 inches. This is all. I'm not laughing because I think it's silly. I'm laughing because I think this is cool. Because I'll tell you guys, spoiler alert, this is put together really, really well. I've been a fan of ADV knives or Andre de Villiers knives or ADV Tactical since I first saw the Butcher or the Tac Butcher, I think on Jim Skelton's channel sometime around 2013. And I ended up owning a 2014 variant of the Butcher, which I very much liked at the time. And still to this day, honestly, ADV knives have their own specific look. Very tactical, very aggressive, but I found there to be a lot of the elements are very purposeful, intentionally purposeful. Now we have some, some craziness for the sake of craziness here. And honestly, as a knife enthusiast, I think you guys can agree, I appreciate those elements a lot because we have a gajabillion really straightforward, good, practical designs. I'm not saying this isn't practical, but I like the the character that this brings to the table. It has a presence. You look at it, people who are even vaguely familiar with ADV knives will look at that and go, that's an ADV, without reading ADV on the blade or anything right? I mean, we know what they look like, right? Very cool. Follow him on Instagram if you want to take a look at some of his other models. There's a lot of models. It's really confusing generations and things like that and all the different models and variants. Some of the different models have different names, but they look like evolutions of previous models. It's hard for me to kind of pin down, all of the different evolutionary traits and the differences between the models, but I'll invite you to follow him on Instagram, take a look at his stuff. There's lots to look at there for sure. This is a little bit different than a normal review because I'm just trying to let you guys know, what I've got here as far as information on the knife. How about some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Rat 2? It's your first indication, right? Visual indication of exactly how huge this knife is. It's huge. Wow, this is a beast because the Rat 1 is not a tiny knife. It just looks really tiny compared to the Pitboss. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and Spyderco Para 3? This looks like the Olympic hammer throw athlete version of the Spyderco PM2, right? That's what this looks like. Or like American Strongman version, right? This looks like Thor. What's his name? From Game of Thrones, right? If he was a Spyderco PM2. that's what this looks like. It's huge. I like a big knife. It's fun. How about up against the Ritter RSK MK1 G2? Or in this case, the Griptilian Benchmade. I'm sorry. Why did I mess that up? Let's take a look at it compared to the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue and its little brother, the Mini Griptilian, right? Okay, it's a big knife. We get it. Let's do carry profile. The action on this is here. Let me show you. Completely and totally fall shut. Thickness. You know, it's not as thick as you might expect. It's definitely thicker than the Spyderco Para 3, but for a knife that's so big, you might expect it to just be absolutely hulking in all dimensions. The blade stock is thick, but surprisingly, it's not as thick as I thought it would be. Let's do length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. There's no hiding this. This is going to be a pocket beast. This is going to be a knife that you carry alone in a pocket. You probably aren't going to want other things in the pocket, right? Height, length, it's massive, right? It's taller than both the PM2 and Para 3, longer, thicker, everything. The knife is made up of S35VN carbon fiber, nice marble carbon fiber, and then I honestly thought these would be steel liners. No, they are titanium. I'm going to tell you guys right now, again, on pricing, because this is not a model that I'm seeing in stock anywhere, and I don't know how long it's been out of stock. I'm seeing prices ranging between the Pitboss 1 and 2, ranging between $330 and about $360, which is honestly less than I thought this would be. I remember the Tack Butcher and some other knives, some other models being something like $400 a while ago. Andre de Villiers is a South African knife maker, so that's the country of origin for these knives. So just letting you know, that's roughly the range that we're looking at here. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check real quick. Get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the description. Now, the body screws are all going to be T8, it looks like. Can we see there? Yeah, T8. Okay. So we have the stop pin screw up here, which honestly, I think that should be a floating stop pin. I don't know that we need a screw right there, but okay. We've got a couple of T8 screws back here, which is fantastic. And then we have a hidden screw holding in. Can you see in there? Hidden screw holding in the pocket clip, which honestly looks really nice. So that's good. The pivot is a hex head, much like what we see on ProTech pivots and body screws, right? So there you go. You'll need a hex. That's fine. Usually your Torx sets come with hex heads, so I don't really have a problem with that. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness, because it's a pretty thick blade stock. Let's go ahead and measure that here real quick. Blade stock thickness. Oh boy. Oh, I clipped off the side of it. Sorry. Let's try that again. 175 thousandths. That's in between the Hinder XM18 3.5 and XM24 for thickness, but don't let that, dissuade you. This particular one has a fully flat ground blade, and it is very tall. So your slicing performance is, oh man, it does get pretty darn thin down here. And these are clean cuts. These are not tear cuts, right? This is no problem, right? Paper cut test doesn't prove really anything. It's just to show you guys, don't always, a lot of times you hear a thicker blade stock means lesser cutting performance, but in this case, since we have it's not a fully flat ground blade, but a very high flat ground blade with a small flat up here, so there's lots of room to drop towards the cutting edge. So there's a lot of durability carried out to the tip, but this will cut. Yes. The Pitboss, I don't know if all Pitboss 2 designs are compound grind. Compound meaning you have, and from what I saw, the hollow up front and the flat out here. It's probably going to be pretty thin on the hollow, and I think it had more of an aggressive flat because they put a fuller in here, or he put a fuller in there in front of this opening hole. So your cutting performance might be a little bit different. Your final cutting edge geometry might be a little bit different on those guys. But on this guy, yeah, it definitely cuts, so that's pretty cool. Weight on this guy, this feels like at least probably between 6 and 7 ounces is my guess. Okay, yeah, 6.84 ounces. So, whether you're a ratios person or not, right, it kind of goes out the window. This is a big, fairly thick, heavy knife. It's got good balance, though. I'll tell you guys, the balance is literally right where you put where they want you to put your index finger. It's right behind the pivot. So in hand, it feels pretty wieldy. But, you know, when you're just kind of holding it and guessing, yeah, it's a heavy knife. This is a work pants sort of knife. This is an outdoor use sort of knife. Probably not a knife that's going to be comfortable in your fitted khakis, right? This is a knife that's comfortable in work pants, jeans, heavy-duty pant material, stuff like that. So, yeah, do with that information what you will. It's obviously not going to be legal everywhere. Have we done everything there? I think that we have. Should we take a look at the inside? Let's take a look at the inside here real quick. So these are titanium liners, fully lipped out to the outside, and they are solid. There is no internal milling. I think that might bring the balance towards the pivot a little bit. I think that might be something that, you know, would be a good idea in the future if Mr. de Villiers is watching. Personally, I don't really care. You guys know that I like larger knives. Now, this is way longer than I normally like to carry. But as far as the weight goes, it's a little past my maximum. But I've got an XM18 3.5 inch that weighs nearly 6.5 ounces because it's in full tie, unmilled. And I don't really care that much, right? But I know that a lot of people watching do care. So that might be something that it would be a good idea in the future. All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes here. So we have a lot going on. This is real busy in here, really. I mean, this is very ADV. If you go and look, you know, if you type, I'll list ADV listings, you know, with the retailers that I work with down below, so you guys can go take a look if you want to. But I'm used to seeing a lot of lines, right? They're not really serving a lot of purpose, but it's part of the character of ADV. It's just something that I'm so used to seeing with his knives that it just doesn't really surprise me. Does it need to be there? No. If it wasn't there, I think it would look better if this was just a clean carbon fiber look, right? We've got enough going on with the hardware that it kind of breaks that up a little bit. And there's already cool stuff to look at, like the button, which is something that we're going to touch on, believe me. Because of the way that this is shaped, right, we have like very distinct positions for your hand. They want your index finger here, middle finger, and the final 3 back here, right? This fits my hand perfectly. This space between here and here, the one position that you're meant to hold it in, it fits, right? And you're locked in. You are not going to drop this knife. There's no real meaningful, right? You could say like the lines here offer traction. Not really. It's really just being locked in. I'm not going to say that these areas are sharp, but they're very prominent. I personally would like less of these aggressive sort of like put your hands right here kind of lines. I'd like this kind of knocked back, a little more ergonomic freedom, less of a, you know, I guess on a baseball bat, it's called a sting stopper. Less of that back here. I'd kind of like that shaved down, so because there's so much potential real estate, right? A knife this big that's meant to be used outside, will it be comfortable in this primary position? Absolutely. But in some situations, I might want to choke back, and the choke back position on this knife is not super duper comfortable. Especially, I mean, this is a nice pocket clip, but it's very prominent, right? It's sticking up quite a bit, so you're gonna feel it. I personally would like these areas knocked down. I'd also, something that I have not seen from ADV knives, at least not, you know, I'm not aware of it. I've not seen contouring. I think it would be really cool to knock these areas down. Well, it certainly does add character. Let me be clear about that. It does add character to the knife. So the suggestions that I'm making are sort of bringing it back down to the generalized, like, you know, straightforward utilitarian cutting tool, you know, the common cutting tools that we see, right? So I'm kind of taking a hack at its character here. So, you know, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. These areas knocked down, this area knocked way down, so I can make use of this extra real estate back here. Some contouring and perhaps some nested liners I think would be a really good idea. Because lesser material all the way around, especially with the liners, and then if you milled them out, you probably could knock some weight off of this guy and really make it an impressive, you know, whether you're talking about the big one or the little one, you could make it, you know, doing that might shave 3/4 of an ounce off of the thing, maybe more. I don't really know. I don't make knives. I'm just guessing based on what I've handled. So it's really cool the way that it is, and I'm really glad that these liners are titanium and not steel. I think that's great because I really expected them to be steel. But I think it would take this to the next level, you know, adding some contouring and things like that. And then you could still have that robust feeling with the contouring, but you wouldn't have the excess thickness of the liners because they would be nested inside the carbon fiber. Now, he does a lot of different materials. I've seen G10, I've seen a combination of carbon fiber and a titanium bolster, right? So that may not be possible across the board, but man, it would look really cool and feel a little bit better. And I think it would probably get rid of some of the blockiness. It's not sharp, it's not aggressive, right? You can see here, they've done a wonderful job of chamfering these areas right here. Even though we have some areas that look really angular, you can see these edges? They're knocked down, right? So it's not like it's this big pointy thing going into your hand. It's good, right? This button is the coolest looking. That is just beautiful. How it's just like a knurled, polished rectangle. So easy to find. It's not recessed. It's sticking up, right, as it should be with a button lock. It's great. The detent on this guy is fantastic. It's exactly how it should be. I'll give you guys a look here. Click, right? There's a little bit of a pull because it's a sort of a plunge, like a cylindrical lock, right? So it's not I'm saying detent, right? But it's actually, as far as I understand, it's actually the plunge lock that is creating that sensation, right, when you fire the blade. But it's easy. I mean, no problem. You want to push button it or you want to do more of a light switch, no problem. You push that button and it swings right into the closed position. Nice and smooth. It's running on bearings. There's a safety here. And a safety that's not mushy, which is something that really bothers me with safeties when the button's just like, you know, click into the locked position. You can't open it. No movement in the blade whatsoever. No clicks, no clacks, nothing. It is locked down. In the open position, you can also lock it out. I'm not 100% convinced we need a safety on this, but if you're really, really using this thing hard and you're kind of moving around, I can see there might be a circumstance where you're holding it like this and your index finger might come down on that button because that button, while there's a lot of room on the handle, that button's really large, right? And if you were to accidentally, see if I can pretend to accidentally do it or force it, there is a situation maybe, right? So I can kind of see why he did that. But for the most part, it's out of the way. If I'm gripping it naturally, right, not locked out right now, squeezing it as hard as I can, my finger comes down on the lock. It's actually quite a ways from the button. That's only in a pretty rare circumstance so I could see that happening. But if it did, you got a lot of blade, a lot of sharp blade coming down on your fingers, right? So I can kind of understand why the safety's there. That opening hole, can you access it to deploy it? Yes, you can. There's quite a bit of room. Another reason why I think these areas should be knocked down a little bit, you can see there it would create much more access to this opening hole, which you do have quite a bit of access to already. But if you could imagine there, if this whole peak was not here, lots more room in there. Lots more room on both sides to do the reverse flick, lots more room to do the forward flick, right? You can do it. Not perfect, but you can do it. I also kind of like this gear pattern that's around the outside of the hole. It adds a little bit of potential traction for your thumb. So that's cool. I like that. Moving on to the blade. Actually, let's take a look at the flipper tab. I love that they put a hole in it. I just think that's cool. It doesn't really serve a purpose. It's just neat. The jimping is just perfect on the flipper tab, and the edges, corners are all nicely knocked down, so it is not uncomfortable to flip, and the landing zone is nice and smooth. So truthfully, this is like one of the biggest fidget knives that I've ever handled. It's really a joy to play with over and over and over again. You just got to be careful because there's a lot of blade coming down. Satin finish on the blade. I think I've said this in so many reviews. I think a light reflectivity tumbled finish would look so much better on something like this. Make it look so much more premium. The rest of the look, you know, is really, really cool. I just think the satin finish, the standard sort of belt satin finish, sorry, I'm wiping my fingerprints off, just kind of brings it down a bit because there's so much open blade. The Pitboss 2 blades look a little bit better, especially the ones that are in Cerakote or that have like some sort of coating on them. they're a lot more busy, right? We have the compound grind, we've got the flat and the fuller, right? There's a lot more going on. This is this big open belt satin finished blade. And while it is, great, like in terms of performance, it's definitely going to cut. I just really wish that it was tumbled, or at least that a tumbled finish, light reflectivity tumbled finish was offered. I think that'd be cool. It says Pitboss 1 up there. I don't know that we really need that. And then ADV on this side. Blade steel is S35VN. I would imagine, you can see there, 2021. The mini pit bosses that I've seen listed were in M390. So I think it's safe to assume if there were more of these, maybe that they would be in M390, which, it makes you feel like you're getting more of your money's worth. I mean, I think if you're really going to go out and beat on this thing, S35VN is probably a better choice. But when you're spending this much money on a knife, it's always nice to see M390 on there. So I think that's probably the better bet. I think it'd be cool if he explored S45VN. I think that's a nice balance. You're going to get more of that toughness and sort of ease of sharpening from S45VN, and nearly the same level of corrosion resistance as M390. Not quite the same edge retention, definitely not, but I think it's going to make more sense for people who are going to go out and really use these. The edges and corners of this blade up here are knocked down all the way. Honestly, they're knocked down enough all the way out to the tip. Can I get it to focus? You can see there. Yeah, that little corner is knocked down. So that's nice. Belt satin finish is okay. I think it would look better with the tumbling, right? That's just my opinion here. Liners look good. I think there's like a semi-polish on the liners, and I love the backspacer. That gear pattern backspacer, really aggressive. Nice big lanyard hole for people who are really, need the lanyard, right? But it's not being prioritized over the clip. And the funny thing is, see where that clip is mounted? There's not much of this knife that's going to be sticking up out of your pocket. Now, the pocket clip is really like pocket clip, like it's a big, thick titanium pocket clip. You can see underneath there's a little roller, right? That's neat. I think it'd be just fine without the roller, but it might assist just a little bit. Less of the sort of tactical looking lines, which again is sort of the ADV character, so I can understand why they might need to be there. But a totally smooth contoured surface would probably alleviate any need for the roller in the first place. But I do appreciate that it's there. It's an extra element that, this pocket clip definitely costs a little more to create than a standard titanium pocket clip. This is 3D machined titanium, so that's really nice. If you like a big, robust pocket clip, you might really like this. This is, I think, mainly just for aesthetics. It is easy to get in and out of the pocket. I'm not going to pretend, because there's a nice ramp right there that makes it, that thing's going to rise to meet literally, even if you have mega thick pocket seams, that thing is going, you push that down in your pocket, it's just going to go right in and out of the pocket, one hand, no problem. Backside of the knife looks roughly the same as the front, except for the, the pocket clip, obviously. This is right hand tip up only. The lockout on this blade, sometimes with button locks, I expect there to be a little bit of play. There is no play, none. This is solid. I've wrenched on this thing. I'm really pulling on it right now. This is solid. Nice, big, thick stop pin back there and rounding on the tang. You can see, or shouldering on the tang, so it wraps nicely around it. That's fine. And then in the closed position, the blade is perfectly centered. This is a cool knife. For the Pitboss, the large size Pitboss 1 or 2, you definitely have to like big knives, and you got to be into Fidget Factor. But there's character here, right? This is crazy. We have the flipper tab. Technically, you could use the button lock to open the knife, as you can see I'm doing right there. And then you've got the opening hole, and you've for the reverse flick and the forward thumb flick. Lots of ways to play with this thing. It's pretty neat. Personally, a smaller one, like the Pitboss 2, the mini Pitboss, I think that's the right size. That's the one that I think is going to appeal to the most people. This is cool. Like, if you like big knives, and then yeah, feel free to hunt one down. Again, I'm not finding any current listings for this thing. Smaller one at about 8 inches. Knock these areas down in here so we can make use of this massive amount of real estate, which should be still plenty. It should be massively plentiful, even on the smaller one, right? I didn't mention there's a sharpening choil here, which is great. You're quite a ways from the cutting edge, but you've got a nice, I mean, you've got so much edge. There's so much to work with. So there's a little bit of balance and potential utility there, I guess. I'm generalizing and making what I'm saying really foggy, right? Do with that information what you will. Knocking these areas down, contouring the scales, nesting the liners, right? Smaller version and a tumbled blade finish. And I think we've got a really, really potentially epic knife for the price range. As it sits, is this a $350 knife? Yeah, honestly, I'm kind of surprised that it was only listed. The listings of this exact knife that I could find, of course, discontinued or out of stock, were listed for around $350, which is pretty impressive. There's a lot going on here, and my favorite part of the knife is definitely that button right there. That's really cool. I like that a lot. Obviously, I think M390 or S45EN is probably the right choice, but this knife is crazy just because it's a gigantic, and I don't mean like, you know, oh, it's pretty big. No, it's almost 10 inches of actually pretty good fidget factor. I mean, that's really crazy, and everything locks down solid. I mean, everything feels snug and tight and robust. It's not like this was just slapped together, right? I just think it would bring it to the next level, making a few changes in there, here and there, but this is cool. And it's nice to see something else from, like, in the, you know, my past experience with ADV knives has been pretty much just the butcher and the little slip joint butcher, the mini, I can't remember what that was here recently that I unboxed. It's nice to handle something else. This is neat. But, you know, it feels, these still feel, not in terms of overall quality, but in terms of the design, this feels very 2013 to 2015 to me, which is, I mean, I'm a Hinderer fan, right? People are going to be quick to point out, well, the Hinderer design is, the XM18 design is much older than that, and you're still ranting and raving about those in 2021, right? Yeah, but you know, I understand that there's a wide variety of people looking at this, right, who have more of their tastes lie more around what we're seeing in 2021. They might be looking at this and going, nah, it's neat, but, you know, the design looks, you know, because of the liners that come out to the lip and the flat scales and the very aggressive milling and things, it kind of looks like that area, right? So it depends on what you like. But I think those changes, I mean, keeping the ADV profile and the ADV look in essence and making a few changes here and in the liners and the contouring, right? Nice tumbled finish. I think that'd really bring these up and make them much more interesting, at least to me, right? These changes are, I'm mainly saying, like, this is what I would want to see. Right? I don't speak for everybody. It's just what I would want to see. I do like this, though. I find myself playing with it a lot when I'm just sitting around at home. This is really fun to flip over and over and over again. And it makes a nice metallic sound when you deploy it. Can you hear that? Really cool. I like this. Can't say really recommendable or not recommendable because, again, it's not, as far as I can tell, it's not readily available. You might be able to contact him on Instagram and see, right? If you're really interested in this, maybe. You know, if you're interested in buying one and they are truly sold out everywhere, you might be able to contact him on Instagram. So I'll invite you to do this. This was a long review. I just had a lot to say because this was really unique and different versus other knives that I've handled here lately. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you again to Andre de Villiers for allowing me to take a look and sending this in for review. I really appreciate that. If you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives. They're either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.